Hey everyone, welcome back to the Limitless Potential Show. I'm your host, Vanessa Jane Patrick, and today we have, as I always like to say, another exceptional guest on the Limitless Potential Show for you guys. So today we have the incredible Erik Thor, who I cannot wait to introduce you to. And basically today we are talking discovering your flow type. And if you have ever wondered what on earth personality psychology is, maybe how you can use it for your own personal growth, also how to get into a state of flow in your life and what that really means, and also why you do what you do and what makes you unique from others, then today is going to be a really empowering and interesting session for you. So let me tell you a quick little bit about Erik before I bring him on for you. But Erik Thor is a Swede on an adventure in the Netherlands. He loves to learn about the human mind, our values, and conscious living. And his goal is to nurture a culture of flow where people can be their most natural versions of themselves and where passion is at the heart of everything we do. So I think you can tell by that introduction that Erik is an incredible fit for the Limitless Potential Show, living authentically, loving deeply, contributing meaningfully and purposefully. And I myself am extremely excited about this one because Erik has had a tremendous impact on my own learning in this realm. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the one and only Erik Thor. How are you, Erik? Great to have you here.
Hi, good morning. Hope looking for this discussion. Thank you for that introduction. Hope to be of any help in introducing people to personality psychology and just showing people how they can rediscover themselves through personality psychology and also rediscover flow.
Yeah, and like I just mentioned, I'm very, very excited to have you on because back a few years ago now, back in about 4 years ago, I started my own personal journey with Myers-Briggs type indicator, with Personality Hacker. I know you're familiar with, and that you've done some blogging for them as well. And that just transformed my entire life, right? And since then, I have been deep diving into this stuff, and I honestly filter everything I do and everybody I meet through these different frameworks, and as well with the Enneagram that I know you are an expert with as well. But I would love to introduce people to this because so many in this community, they've kind of like maybe heard a little bit or maybe I've shared a tiny little bit, but I'd love to have this conversation be something that really sparks their interest through you sharing maybe a bit more of your personal journey and why this is important to you. But firstly, I'd just love to ask you, what are you most grateful for in your life right now?
For my lovely fiance, for my new apartment, for being able to live in the Netherlands and to experience life the way I do right now, and even through quarantine and all the difficulties and not being able to travel anywhere and everything that's happening, I just feel most of the time happy and content and comfortable, at least in my own private sphere, in my own private life. I just feel like when it comes to my private life, I'm happy. I have everything I need. And of course, when it comes to going out and partying, going to concerts and everything, then of course there's still more to be had. But privately, I feel I have everything I need, and I couldn't be happier with that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And yeah, it's a crazy time across the globe. So it's beautiful to have you kind of role modeling what it is to find the good, right? And I'd love to just a bit of a random question on this before we dive in. What's kind of your perspective on how we should be kind of empowering ourselves during this time where it's kind of uncertain and, we're maybe in lockdown? Just what kind of comes up for you, and maybe even through the filter or the lens of your expertise?
So I kind of missed the first part of that, but basically what I would like to share is that people have kind of a societal programming a lot of the time on them, like, oh, I have to do this and I have to be like that, and I have to, in this group or with family, I have to act like this, and everyone is very aware of their expectations that are on them. So the way I use personality psychology is I try to get people to escape from their normal conditioning and to get people to think about their own potential. So what is it I really want to do, and what is it I really enjoy, and what is it that gives me energy, and what is it that gives me motivation in my life. I use personality psychology to introduce people to their likes and interests and passions and comforters and things that can de-stress them. So really, that's what it's all about for me, helping use personality types to help people rediscover themselves.
This is so beautiful, and I totally resonate. And a lot of people in the audience, we talk a lot about the number one regret of the dying. So I'm not sure if you've heard of Bronnie Ware's book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. But basically, even if you haven't, basically the number one regret of the dying is that I wish I had have had the courage to live a life true to myself rather than one I felt was expected of me. So I'm so grateful for the work that you do and how you're helping people to, drop away from their normal expectations that are given from society and family and so forth, and actually tap into the truth of what empowers them. So that really brings me to, I'd love to just dive into a little piece about your history and, what got you to be so interested in this realm, and kind of what was your life like before it as well?
Definitely. So before I went into personality psychology and started really understanding myself, I was very deeply involved in politics. And the way you can think about politics, in politics, everything is very rehearsed. You practice your speeches, you practice your personality, you practice your behavior, how you interact with people, who you talk to, and basically how you showcase yourself to get people to vote for you. So it's very much a rehearsed stage where you have to really take on kind of an extra personality. Of course, it's an extent of yourself and who you really are, but there is a lot of layering on top of that that can be very exhausting. So what I ended up realizing was about 5 years into politics, I realized I was stressed to the max, and I never got time to rest, and I never really got time to be myself. And in that, I kind of hit the wall in a sense that I couldn't go on anymore. I couldn't really keep being like that or living that lifestyle. So I had to really set stop on everything. And when I set stop on everything, I was lost with a bunch of questions like, but who am I then without politics and without all these things? And what is my real personality? And what I came to realize was that, for example, while I was very outgoing, I was not an extrovert, for example. I didn't get any energy from being on the stage or from being in those places or from acting that way. So instead, it was taxing for me. So it had constantly taken energy from me. So I started, realizing, I have certain boundaries, I have certain needs that I need to respect in myself. I have certain core things about myself that are very important to maintain if I want to be healthy and happy in what I do. Yeah. So my journey really brought me to the thing that really brought me to personality psychology was realizing that I've forgotten about myself and who I was, and that I really needed to go back to find out who I was.
This is awesome. And so how did you come across personality psychology, and what happened at that point?
So, of course, I'd taken a 16 personalities test, and I got in the letters and all of those things. But when I did it the first time, I was like, oh, okay, is that it? Yeah. Then I just moved on and I just forgot about it. But the thing that really hit me was when I started researching Carl Jung and highly sensitive people. And that's depth to this, because the way I see it, a lot of people use personality psychology in two different ways. Some use it for quick labeling. Oh, this is who I am. Oh, I'm this campaigner personality type, and I'm always very outgoing and chaotic and bubbly and all those things. And then I see those that use personality psychology for growth. And the people who use it for growth, they are a lot more, why am I like this? Why do I act like this? And what is the purpose for me to, why do I always feel like I have to be this persona? For example, you might realize that, why do I feel the need to constantly be so chaotic? Is it because I've been trained to constantly entertain other people? And is it because I am trying to escape from negative emotions that I've had in my past, or that I can't be serious, or that I can't really go inside or be more authentic?
Yeah.
So I really advocate using personality psychology for growth rather than labeling.
Oh, and I love this. Yeah, this is the key, right? Because so many people that I talk to about personality psychology, their initial reaction is, yeah, I've done the test online, right? And also they're, a lot of people don't want to be put in a box, right? And so this is the element that I love about these frameworks that I don't think is talked well enough into, or not. I mean, you talk brilliantly into this, but it's not, it's kind of like, well, how do we get this information to more people, right? And so I'd love to hear from you, like on a basic kind of surface level, how does knowing your type help you to grow yourself rather than just be put in a box?
So if I would just talk about it from the perspective of, for example, an introvert, knowing you're an introvert can be extremely rewarding, because first you recognize that anyone can act outgoing, anyone can be social, anyone can enjoy being with groups of people, anyone can enjoy going to a party in the right conditions, in the right situation. But knowing you're an introvert also means knowing what you need to do in order to calm yourself, to gain stability, and to maintain your energy, and to remain steady in what you do. So what I tell introverts is, for example, if you are at a party, that can be great and that can be a lot of fun, but learn to be okay with being quiet in a group setting, for example, or to talk more slowly, or to not feel rushed or pressured. Learn to do things at your own pace. If you prefer to dig in with something, or to focus on one person, or to just take your time on a theory or a thought, or if you want to spend more time talking about more subjective things like your feelings, your thoughts, your complex problems, you learn to just embrace those aspects of yourself and to try to pursue that as much as possible, because that's the key to flow.
I love this. This is so awesome. And one of the things that I love so much about using these sort of personality typology systems for personal growth is I'm sure you could probably agree with me, but we'll see. But basically, a lot of the personal development realm seems to be one size fits all, right? So they might tell you to get up on the stage and do that, right? And that might be great for an extrovert like myself, but for somebody who's more introverted like yourself, what you just expressed then is so powerful for that particular individual. And so is this something that you see, how, one size fits all?
Definitely.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
I've always had a fascination with self-help literature and personal growth and psychology. So whenever I went to the library, which is quite a lot, I would always go browse through these shelves. And then I would always see like this message, how to become more outgoing, how to become more liked by everyone, how to become, basically it was all about just this kind of programming, like this ideal citizen. And that's the kind of societal programming that I talked about earlier, because while all of these things that they talk about can be very positive and can be very important to a lot of people, there is also strength in other books. So you should also try to embrace whoever you are, whatever you want to be. So you should really try to find and steer away from literature that tells you who to be, and rather focus on literature that talks about what you want to feel. So rather like focus on self-help literature that says, okay, how do I become more confident, or how do I become how do I deal better with my emotions, or how do I improve my empathy? Because those things, they talk more about the kind of emotional states that are true to all humans, because we all want to feel and to feel a certain way about ourselves and about life.
Yeah. Totally. And I would love to hear from you. What has been your biggest personal breakthrough with discovering, say, your type And really, when you got really solid on that and you really dove into it, you know, beyond just getting your 4-letter code and it maybe not meaning all that much at the very beginning, what had been the biggest breakthrough that you have experienced at the beginning or the entry point of your knowledge in this area?
So I think for me, the biggest thing was, of course, realizing that the personality types are just a model. So they're not an absolute truth in the sense that all INFJs are like this or all ENFPs are like that. Basically, what you want to look at is just what does this type mean to me? And what does it? How do I express this personality type, and how do I embody it, and what characteristics are true to me? Mm-hmm. So you should use it as kind of a canvas, like when you select colors, to kind of see what personality traits you resonate with, and what kind of lifestyle that speaks to you, and what kind of career or goals or ambitions that would really give you purpose and meaning.
This is so perfect because a lot of people who listen to the show, we're all on a mission to develop and be clear on our purpose, right? To live a really meaningful existence. And so a big part of what I'm seeing with these kind of frameworks, it's kind of like we can have this huge guessing game. Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like you said earlier, who am I? And it's kind of like we can use these frameworks to kind of push up against and go, oh, that's so reassuring, right? That's going to help me to fast track by the knowledge and the expertise and all the studies and everything and everyone who's come before me, who's been able to kind of encapsulate, not word for word and not perfect in the model like you mentioned, but something that really resonates and something that can set us on the trajectory that we're supposed to be on, that's most meaningful for us as individuals. So is this, could you use maybe yourself as an example with this one, maybe as an INFJ, as you would identify as in this system, and how that relates to the mission or the purpose that you have in your life?
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. I was talking with my girlfriend about what we wanted to be when we grew up. Basically, when we were 5-6 years old, what did we want to be? So I thought about it and was like, wait a second, I don't really know. So I asked my mom, and I said, Mom, what did I want to be when I was 5-6 years old? And then she said, a magician. And what I realized was, of course, I've always had kind of an idea of what I wanted to be. My entire life, actually, I've had a very strong idea of what I wanted to be. The thing was, it was not a particular specific career. I think people get stuck on the purpose thing because they're looking for a career that matches with their purpose. But a lot of time, career and purpose doesn't have to overlap. So your purpose doesn't have to be your career. Your purpose is always going to be something much bigger than that. So it's a whole lifestyle. So it embodies, for me, it was always going to be something creative. For me, it was always going to be something philosophical, something explorative, something which allowed me to do research, something that allowed me to connect with people emotionally, something that helped me understand things, because I always was drawn to, from an early age, I was drawn to writing, to philosophy, to personality, to psychology, to understanding things. So I kind of always knew what I wanted to do from a kid's age. I already had passions and I already had interests.
Yeah. And I think I can also, just add with so I identify as an ENFJ in the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And so you and I would be using the same cognitive functions, but using them a little bit differently. And for people who don't know much about that, we're not going to go into the depths of that. But basically, for me, I knew I wanted to do psychology, right? When it was coming to that time where I was trying to pick a university degree. But because of how I'm wired, I listened too much to the responses that I got from my family that were, and when I mentioned, psychology, but there's no money in that, or you're going to have to deal with everybody's problems, or this or that. And And so it's interesting how we can look at our personalities, and now I can have some answers as to why I never knew who I was, right? And how I lived so much to the expectations of others based on how I'm wired, and how empowering it was for me to discover my real type and to be able to have a framework that just kind of answers the questions as to why I do what I do, and it can be really empowering in that way. So for you, what do you feel is currently your purpose, and how does that align with how you're kind of wired?
So I think I'm always kind of rediscovering my purpose. Like I do know what I want to do, but at the same time, I'm always like realizing another nuance of it or another level of it. And what I've come to realize a lot lately is that I am a lot more interested in not just helping people, but in creating something that will help people. So I had kind of that reframe in myself where I realized, okay, I don't just enjoy going out and helping somebody. Okay, somebody's computer is broken, going and fixing it. I like to create tools, and then I like that these tools then come to help other people. So that's what I've come to realize. I need to focus more on kind of building on and working on the theory and the websites and the platforms. I begin to learn a lot more about programming and technology, because I've come to realize that I have a talent for that, and if I can use that correctly, I can create innovation that really reaches people and that can have a positive impact for other people. So that's been kind of a main shift for me lately. It's taken me a bit away from making movies or videos, but it's taken me a lot closer to working on my website and on learning new skills and on building better personality tests, for example.
Awesome. And speaking of the tools that you use and that you've created to help people in this realm, I'd love for you to share a little bit about flow type and what that is for people to understand, and how and why they want to know about that.
So, of course, basically, there are in total 16 flow types that I work with. These are the same as the MBTI 16 personality types. They are introverts, extroverts, intuitives, sensors, feelers, thinkers, judgers, and perceivers. So when people talk about judging normal ideas, it's always the person who is very organized, the person who is very structured, who is always on time. When we talk about perceiving type, it's the person who is carefree, who does everything last minute, and who doesn't plan anything. For me, when I talk about judgers, I talk about people that feel the most relaxed when they have a goal in mind, preferably a long-term goal, and when they can focus on a goal and work towards it long-term. I mean, anybody can be chaotic. Anybody, if life becomes too much, if there's too many things on your plate, imagine you have 3 kids to feed, and you have work to go to, and you have perhaps an evening course at the university. Of course, even anybody can be chaotic or can be scattered or can lose track of time in what's happening in life, because life can be quite stressful for people. So I just make that small shift, just saying, are you a person who is goal-oriented and who likes to have focus? Or are you a person that likes to think in terms of targets? Are you a person who likes to think short-term? Because people who like to think more short-term, that like to think about more easy targets and quick changes and adaptation and putting together a new idea right away, those people tend to be perceiving types. When I talk about intuitives and sensors, I talk about interests. So just what kind of interests do you have? What do you enjoy talking about? What do you find fun to explore? Abstraction, creativity, theory, philosophy, experimentation. Those are all intuitive hobbies. While going out, physical exercise, being together with a group, having a clear role or duty, disciplining yourself, those things are all sensory. When talking about feelers and thinkers, a lot of time the feelings types, they are described as emotional ones, the thinking types as the logical ones, but pretty much For me, feeling types are just types that enjoy agreeableness, basically having more of a collaborative culture, having being of service, giving, helping others, or making a positive impact for others, focusing on especially the emotional impact. Do I help people? Do people like me? Do people feel good? Do I feel good? Those kind of questions. Where thinking types, they tend to focus more on the practical problem solving. Okay, what needs to be done? What is smart? What can I do first? What works better in practice? What evidence do I have for this? Those kind of more logical deductions.
Interesting. And so is it that when people can understand their types, or they can just see and use this kind of language, it's kind of like, well, when you just accept who you are and what you're interested in, or how you're kind of wired in a way, that puts you into flow. Like the more true to yourself you're being, the more in a flow state you would be. Is that right?
That's the main part of it, exactly. The more you can find your key personality traits, and the more you can express those in your daily life, generally the more meaning you'll feel, the more purpose, the more passion, the more energy. That said, however, there are some things. If you do this while ignoring stress from that you have to deal with, that's not going to work out. So if you, as an ENFP, constantly escape from your past, or from expectations that you have, or times you have to be at, or things that you have to do, you're going to have constantly stress building up. So you're going to have to learn to resolve that kind of stress, and to keep that stress as low as possible in order to maximize your flow state. Because unresolved stress is about as toxic as just being forced positive. You're constantly being positive when you know that there are issues and you know that not everything is going well. So you have to really make sure you address all sides of your personality. You have to think of your whole personality as one. Your personality is your flow state, but also who you are in stress, but also your anxiety, and also who you are going to be, your future self, kind of.
Absolutely. So for those who are listening who don't know their type, and they don't know much about it, but they're kind of, they're a bit interested now, what would you say, because everybody listening to this show, they love their personal development. They want to grow in all areas of their life. They want to reach for their potential. So would step one be discovering their type? And then how also would they start the development stage?
So the first thing I usually do is I link people to my personality test on erikthor.com. So it's right on the front page. There's a button that says click, click, click. I don't know. So you can't miss it. That's the best starting point. If you want to figure out your type, just answer those questions, because I made those questions to really get you to think about, okay, what do I enjoy? What do I struggle with? What do I dislike? So it's just a great starting point. And that personality test, it will not 100% get your type down, but it will point you in the right direction. So already after doing that, you can start discovering the different types. And what I advocate is learning about all the types. So not just about the first one you get. Just learn about all the types as nuanced as possible, because that's when you start really seeing the differences. Oh yeah, that type enjoys this, and oh yeah, this type enjoys that, and I like that, but that type doesn't like that as much, or doesn't get as much energy from that. That's really interesting. I didn't realize that people could think like that, because that's really step two, realizing that, not everybody is like me, because I think everyone tends to walk around with that assumption. We all feel very different from everyone else, and everyone feels very unique, but at the same time we tend to assume that everyone else will respond the same way as we do to a certain situation.
Yeah.
It's kind of a paradox.
Totally. And, just for everybody out there, before I was really deep diving into personality psychology and got to discover my true type, online tests, they're not always correct. For some people, they're totally correct straight away. For me, I always typed out as an ENFP, which is totally different to the ENFJ. But, it took me some time and some kind of processing of disconnecting from being the ENFP in my mind. So it's an interesting process, and I've put your website up on the screen for everybody so that they can go and check out your personality test and see kind of what comes up for them and start that leg of the journey. And I wanted to ask you, like, when it comes to actually, let's go here because you just mentioned it, in terms of how it can benefit us in relationship. Understanding our differences. And so what's kind of, a little bit that you'd like to share basically on how it's beneficial for relationships?
Yeah, so okay, I am currently dating an ENFP and I'm an INFJ, so we already have some differences in the sense that she is more extroverted and she is also a perceiving type. What I do notice is first, we have a lot more similarities than you'd expect because there is always some kind of unique or weird thing you can relate to in any type. Like even if you're meeting your very opposite, even if you meet an ESTP as an INFJ, you'll find that there are some things that are like, hey, I'm also like that, or I also have that. So first, you always have something you can connect with every type. So just knowing about the framework will actually help you connect more with people because it will help you have more meaningful conversations with people. I noticed that people tend to gravitate to talking about the weather or about what the date is or what's happening at work whenever they meet new people. But when I have conversations with people nowadays, it's much more about, so what do you like? What are your interests? What do you care about? What are you passionate about? And just having that conversation is much more meaningful and gives you a lot more because you also make people feel more seen because people like to talk about themselves and they like to really also explore those things because those are much closer to people's hearts.
Yeah. Totally. It makes you a much better communicator. You get to be really fascinated and interested in other people because you know that they're different. And particularly if you go on a deep dive, and you get really fascinated on these personality types, you kind of want to look at, like, I haven't stopped, every single day when I meet somebody new or I'm interacting with somebody, I'm constantly thinking about and asking them questions about, well, why is that important to you, or kind of fascinating about them because it's so interesting to know our differences. Yeah.
Basically, when it comes to me and my personal relationships, something I did notice was that I have a habit of slowing down everything I do. So I like to just sit down with something and take my time and work on it. And basically, when you talk about, for example, ENFP, you recognize that those people, they don't like that. They like to make things happen. They're focused on what's next or what do we do? How do we get from there? And okay, how are we going to do this? So they go a lot more to implementation. So something I realized was that first we had a clash there. Basically, if I wanted to connect more deeply with this person, I had to learn to be okay with their tempo and to adjust to their tempo. But also we had some kind of a meaningful exchange there because while I had a tendency to slow things down, they had an ability to speed me up and to inspire me to do things, to put things to practice. So before I met my girlfriend, I actually didn't have a YouTube. I didn't have a website up. I didn't have, anything. But after meeting her, I realized, okay, I have to actually speed things up. I actually have to start putting things out there and putting myself out there. Because I have something meaningful to share. So also meeting other personal types is really rewarding because they can help you learn new ways to do things.
Totally. And I think you just hit on something that's super valuable when you dive into these kind of frameworks is that, like you mentioned before, instead of walking around projecting yourself onto everybody else, you actually get to appreciate the differences and go, whoa, like, how do you see the world and how do you do that? And how could I benefit from that? Like you just expressed with your girlfriend kind of getting you into action, right? Like just, hey, you've got this value to add. And I'm sure you have an influence on her as well.
Yeah, exactly. The way you can think about it is, I think a lot of time we have kind of fear of meeting new people or connecting with other people, as well as we want to connect with other people, and most people tend to feel a bit lonely or a little bit left out. We are also a bit afraid of opening up and connecting with people because we are very much afraid of rejection. So the one thing we really have to work on is really learning to be our authentic selves, not just for ourselves, but also with other people. So when you meet with other people, you have to really unwind that script of, oh, I have to be more friendly, or I have to talk more fast, or I have to be like this, and really just learn to connect with people at your own pace in a way that's comfortable for you, without the fear of reaction, or with the fear of reaction, but still try to push through and still try to just share of yourself, because there is no natural enemy out there in society. There is no personality type out there that is there to give you a bad rep or to put you down or to be mean to you. Everyone can blend together and can connect with each other's and can understand each other's if they just get rid of that fear of reaction.
Absolutely. And you're hitting on something I find super valuable, which is when you be authentic, you actually give other people permission to do the same. You inspire other people to do the same. And I feel like, no matter who you are, no matter on what, timeline of personal development you're at, we all have this kind of innate ability to work out that person's like being a bit phony or they're being authentic, and we gravitate towards authenticity, and we're repelled by people who are being fake or phony. So I'm a big believer in, you might as well, if you've got a fear of rejection or whatever that is, you might as well just show up and be yourself. And to connect through authenticity, or at least give the opportunity for actual connection with yourself.
And that's also important when you meet new people, or when you meet, we have people at work who are very difficult or very annoying. Also recognize how people are when they are in flow as opposed to who they are in stress. Because a lot of time who people are in stress, that's not really their true self. So also try to take people's actions and what they say less personally. A lot of time what people tell you and what energy people gives out, it's not about you. It's about them. So it's about their difficulties in life and in their stressors and their anxieties and their fears. So also consider that when you talk with people, are they in stress or are they in flow? Basically, do they feel relaxed in their body language? Do they feel energetic or excited? Do they feel do they talk with meaning and purpose? Or is it more a reckless lash out of energy and anger that comes out of nowhere? So just notice that in people. Study their body language. Study their when they say something, does it sound like they mean what they say, or does it sound like they're just venting?
Absolutely. And also, how do you see this these frameworks being used to benefit teams? So more in a business context or a working environment. How do you see that happen?
So I work with a team, of course. I work at the cosmetics company at the customer relations department part-time. And we work a lot with the Enneagram, which is about your emotional patterns and how you deal with anger or anxiety or shame. And it's a really interesting pattern. It's really worth exploring. I've also created a lot of articles about the Enneagram on my website. But the way we use it is really just to recognize what people's triggers are, in a sense, at work. So why does a certain person respond a certain way, or what kind of customers do they find difficult, or what issues do we notice in what conflicts do we notice at work, and how can we resolve them? How can we understand them by understanding the Enneagram, by understanding, that's this person's pattern or trauma or struggle. So it also helps give some distance, because I think people get really caught up in their emotions a lot of the time. It's like, this person was really angry or really annoyed. What kind of an idiot is that person? And you kind of miss the understanding part. So really try to nurture a culture of understanding.
And do you have could you give an example for people, maybe in your own, maybe using your own Enneagram type, like maybe something that might trigger you in a work environment that now you're able to mitigate that because you understand the framework, or people around you can support you on that?
Yeah, so one thing is, as an Enneagram 9, I am the mediator, so I see everyone's side and perspective in the discussion. I always want people to get along. That's my natural tendency. But what I have to learn is some people enjoy conflict and don't harbor any negativity while in conflict. For them, it's just something fun, just having an argument, lashing out, pushing against each other's buttons, just for fun almost. It's like play fighting. It's like, two cats who are chasing after each other. Some people just enjoy that, and they just let that be, and don't become tense, or don't try to disarm a conflict as soon as it begins. Just let people have their small tit-to-tats, and notice the difference between when people are play fighting and when people are fighting.
This is cool. And so if I was to come and work with you and your team, and I'm a type 3 in the Enneagram, what would you say, what would you want to be educating me on, or maybe cautious of in a work environment, so that I'm not, being reactive in a circumstance, for instance?
Yeah, so type 3s, they tend to have a kind of fixation with image. So it's do people like that? Do people agree with that? People see my point of view? Do people think I'm the best at what I do? Basically, that wanting to impress people, wanting to look good for other people. So that's the thing 3s really have to work on, because there is nothing wrong with enjoying beauty or enjoying success or having an ambition. And those are the healthy drives of the 3s. Those things are positive. So you can have those and keep those and enjoy those and celebrate those as much as you like. But the image part is unnecessary, because image is empty. 3s who become fixated on image, they also tend to feel empty, because if everything is just looks and appearance, there is no meaning to anything you do or any accomplishment you have. So learn to see the difference between kind of image and beauty. So not just do other people think it looks good, but does it actually look good to me? Do I actually like this? This is actually something positive for me.
Yes, absolutely. And that's been actually a big part of my journey. I actually like to look at like the Myers-Briggs being this kind of way of going, let's look at everything that's great about you, right? Like, let's look at your genius, like personality hacker would talk into, and let's look at your greatest strengths. And of course, we go to the weaknesses and can mitigate stress and all that sort of stuff as well. But then when we get to the Enneagram, I like to think of that as a bit more of a slap in the face for your personal development. Which kind of wake you up to some like, I know when I first read about the 3, I didn't resonate with the 3. I thought I was a 7 until I discovered the subtypes, which we won't go into the depths of for this conversation today. But basically, when I recognized my subtype and I read into that, and I heard somebody speak into a woman's experience of feeling like a beautifully decorated Easter egg that felt hollow on the inside, I was like, slap in the face. It was just such a good awakening. But it's not for the faint-hearted, is what I would say about the Enneagram, in particular with the growth journey. Did you have any sort of experiences like that, like any rude awakenings?
I think for me, my pattern has always been to be very critical of myself, and to always kind of mold myself to others' expectations. Basically, if everyone agrees with you and everyone likes you, you're good. So you just have to make sure everyone likes you and everyone agrees with you. So for me, I've always been very negative about myself. So really, I kind of learning over time, I came to develop kind of a distance to myself or my own personality type, where I was like, why does my type always have to be like that? Or why does my type always have to be like that? So I came to develop kind of an annoyance or a small frustration with myself.
Yeah.
And this was for quite a few years. I had that kind of, oh, why do INFJs have to be like this? And oh, why does nines have to be like that? But later on, I tried instead to move to acceptance. So I think the slap in the face can be important, but I think in the end the goal is acceptance. Basically, slapping your own face a bit with some truths and recognizing and being real about some struggles you have, but also forgiving yourself for having those kind of struggles and just understanding where it comes from and accepting that pride is always going to be there to some extent, but learning to see past it.
Totally, totally. And it's, it's kind of the rude awakening to the blind spots to get to a point of acceptance because, well, I'd rather be awake, right? And if you've got a growth mindset, you want to wake up sooner rather than later to everything that you may be blind to or everything that may be holding you back or keeping you from fulfillment or authenticity or any of that great stuff. So I love that you can get to that point of acceptance, and then it becomes more of a process of, I guess, noticing your own patterns, being consciously aware of them, and then kind of being able to create space between whether you're just going to fall into the pattern or you're going to consciously make a choice about how to direct your life.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. You can kind of resign yourself to being a certain way and be like, oh, I'm always going to be like that. I can't fix that, or I can't stop that, or I can't change that about myself. But I think the greater truth is you're not always going to be like that, and you're not always going to think like that. And eventually you are going to make the decision because, yeah. The question is, how long are you going to wait? And as soon as you actually made the change, and the change is very difficult, you're going to be a lot happier and a lot more comfortable in yourself and a lot more accepting and a lot more confident. So it's about really also pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Basically, to me, the comfort zone is the enemy. Just stagnation, resignment, going to a static mindset, thinking of yourself as something absolute or fixed. When you can learn anything, you can change anything about yourself. There is nothing that is fixed about anybody. You can basically improve or deal with or overcome any kind of trauma or any kind of struggle through hard long-term work.
Yes, absolutely. And I know this is probably a big question to ask you, but it just popped into my head as you said that. But how does understanding personality type help people deal with healing past wounds and traumas?
I think one thing to recognize that I think is really fascinating is that it's not all my parents' fault in a sense. I think we tend to blame our parents for who we become, for who we are. And because of how my upbringing was, or my school, or my friends, or what happened to me, I am this way. But often it's not that way at all because there are lots of people who experience bullying. But everyone resolves and responds to bullying differently. So some become shy and timid, and some become aggressive and outspoken. So it's your response to what's happened to you is your own. Your decision to whatever you experienced is your own. Of course, the emotional trauma is still there. The issues with bullying and with what happened, that's still there. But how you choose to respond to it, you own that. So you don't have to feel like somebody has taken away your free will in anything that's happened to you. What you really have to just feel is, okay, this is how I chose to respond to and deal with my traumas, and this is what happened to me, and learning to separate between what happened to you and the emotional experience and what you did with it.
Totally. And are people, would you say that people are impacted differently? So for instance, say there's, it's maybe why there could be, a group of siblings who grew up all the same, but they have totally different experiences of their childhood. Could you relate that to our different personality types and how things impact us differently?
Yeah, so the fascinating thing is when it comes down to personality in a sense of flow or a sense of values and interests, families tend to be more similar than they are different. That's the interesting pattern I've noticed. People are a lot more similar to their siblings and parents than what they tend to think.
Yep.
And the thing is, we learn to exaggerate our differences in a family, and then we create a role distribution. So we have the quiet one, we have the helper, we have the leader, we have all those roles, and we divide in a family. But when it comes down to the values, okay, what is it that makes me passionate in life? A lot of time we have more similarities than we think. So, for example, I always thought I was very different than my sister. But when I think about it, she is a health coach who loves to write, and he is a person who has always had that passion. And so I realized, okay, we're actually a bit more different than we're actually a bit more alike than what I expected.
Yeah.
So also you can, knowing that, rekindle a bit with your family members and your siblings by learning to shift from that role that you have in the family growing up to what is it we are passionate about? What is it we enjoy?
Yeah, totally, totally. And do you believe, or are you uncertain about this? Do you believe that we are born with our particular types, or do you believe that they develop, or are you kind of on the fence with this one?
So I believe that we are born with certain passions and certain values and certain interests. I believe the values are hardwired in us. Our behavior, however, that is completely up to us. So that's development. So the difference is anything that comes down to what are your intentions, what is it you want out of life, what is it is important to you. Uh, those responses, that rush of dopamine when you feel excited about something, or that kick of serotonin when you feel calm and really focused on something and really engaged and really certain or steady. Those things are hardwired in you and probably there from birth or from very early age. Uh, you just have to learn to separate between those things.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Because I know it's a discussion that a lot of people have, and a lot of people who haven't really gone very deep like to think, oh yeah, I used to be this type, but now I'm this totally other type. And so could you explain maybe a little touch about that? I know it's a bit of a deep one, but why can people think that way?
I think it comes down to first, it can be simply a reframing or realizing that one type is different than what you thought they were. Because there's a lot of stereotypes going around on the internet about how ENFPs, they have to be the pink unicorns, and the INFJs have to be the moody downers, and the INFPs sensitive, and so on. But just recognizing that there are lots of variations within a type and just learning new things about it. So sometimes it's not that you change your type, it's just that you learn something new about a type and you realize, oh wait, I'm actually more like this type than I am about that type. Of course, it can also be that you change your behavior. So you went through a phase where you at work, you had to be very chaotic and you had a lot of projects and you were constantly talking to different partners and constantly spread thin. So you thought you were a perceiving type because you couldn't organize all those things and you couldn't keep track of every date you had and every appointment that was happening. But then you got out of that and you kind of got a new role, or you got the management role, and then you became a bit more organized and a bit more focused. So just sometimes your behavior changes, but that can also be that just rediscovering yourself part. I thought I was more extroverted or outgoing until I discovered MBTI and realized that no, actually I was an introvert.
Yeah. Totally, totally. And it's kind of interesting as we go about developing ourselves. It's not just the four-letter code, right? It's not just that you're one way or the other. You're not just an introvert or you're not just an extrovert. And actually, the more you develop yourself, you're kind of developing both sides. So that's also a way people could, I guess, be kind of not fully understanding what type they would be, or maybe jumping and changing.
Yeah, one thing to think about, and this is kind of the next level.
Yep.
It's just recognizing that you have introverted sides to yourself and you have extroverted sides to yourself. And that's when you start researching the cognitive functions, and Carl Jung's cognitive functions that are also really interesting. Recognizing that, okay, so in this area I'm more extroverted, and in this area I'm a bit more introverted. That's also very interesting to think about. In what areas do I tend to be more introverted, and what areas do I tend to be more extroverted?
Totally. And yeah, it's my kind of belief that when we don't really get all that much from just staying up on the surface with the 4-letter code, and instead we want to use that to kind of point to hopefully a deep dive on the cognitive functions, but it's not for everybody. So, I wish it was. But I'm very grateful for the work and the videos that you do to introduce people to more of that cognitive side as well. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I would say as well that I always try to keep it accessible for everyone. I don't talk about the cognitive function, or avoid talking about the cognitive functions even. Instead, I prefer to think about or talk about things in a way that anybody can join in, anybody can get value from it, no matter if they're new or whether they've been into it for 10 years. So I try to keep all my talks accessible and open, because I think typology is for everyone.
Yeah.
And should be for everyone.
Oh, me too. That's why I was so excited to have this conversation with you. So I would love for you to let people know a little bit more about where they can get in touch with you, maybe get more of your work and take that test, I know, at erikthor.com. But yeah, where would you like everybody to check out more from you?
Of course, check out my website, erikthor.com, or check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/erikthor. It's spelled with a K and a TH, not the American way. I'm basically everywhere. I'm on Instagram, on Twitter, so you can reach me anywhere. I do love to connect with everybody, and I like to hear people's thoughts and feedback. And I don't respond to everything, but I read every comment and everything that happens. So I really appreciate everything that all the people that are contacting me.
Absolutely. And I, for one, am so grateful for your YouTube channel to be able to, along my journey of discovery, be able to just check out and just kind of hear what you have to say about different things, so that I can kind of work things out for myself and become more clear on, who it is that I am, why I do what I do, all those great things, and for also understanding other people who are close to us in our lives as well. Perfect. So I wanted to just quickly dive into the comments just to shout out a little bit. So Indy is here, and she is saying that this is so true. And Jerry is saying awesome and thank you. He's from Quebec City in Canada. Tavasi is also saying thank you, and Jerry says awesome interview. I was like the black sheep weirdo of the family. This is deep in my feeling, and I love who I am, authentic and true. So yeah, can resonate with that.
Me too.
Yeah. Do you find that kind of feeling a bit like the black sheep can oftentimes point to being maybe more intuitive, or it just depends on the family, potentially? It depends. If they're an intuitive family and you're a sensor, you might feel like the black sheep, I guess.
Over time, I realized that everyone feels like a black sheep. I feel like nobody feels like they can fit in this world, because it's very hard. How do you fit in with 16 completely different personality types? Everyone is really, some people just manage to do it better, and some people kind of run away from that feeling. But when you get people down one-on-one, everyone feels a bit weird and everyone feels different. So it's not exclusive to intuitives.
Yeah, totally. This is so true how you put that. And Indy says, thank you both. Amazing conversation. And I'd love to hear from you, just any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with.
I just want to say thanks for this chat, and I really appreciated being on here. And I learned a lot just from our talk myself. I'm still constantly learning about these things. I like how we hit off on and really talked about the difference between the societal programming and true self in a sense. And I think that's what people really need to hone in on. If there's one thing to leave you all with, is just focus on finding your true self and really seeing the difference between the societal conditioning and who you really are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Such a powerful thought. And, you know, you hit the nail on the head with everybody. We're always talking all things authenticity and breaking through and being free to be all of who you are. So really resonating with everything that you've shared today. Thank you for being here and showing up and sharing your wisdom and kind of keeping it at this level where people can get an introduction to and kind of get excited about maybe discovering their type. And maybe someday in the future, as we go along this journey, love to have you back and we could go on a different angle or go deeper. So awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome. And last comment here, Indy just says, we are all in constant learning. So true. So thank you again, Erik, for being here and showing up. And I just want to acknowledge you for the kindness and the genuineness that you exude so with such ease. And I, for one, over the years following your work, I really feel that. I really feel your great intentions behind the work that you do. And it's very heart-touching. And I'm really grateful that there are people such as yourself in this world doing great work to help transform people for the betterment of them just showing up and giving their gifts and being more accepting of our differences. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, great to have you here, and thank you to everybody who could join us. All right, bye.
Bye, everyone.